Hello and welcome to our 10th episode of the Multi-Cloud Expedition. Got a super exciting episode as always, and exciting to build upon the last 9 episodes, and then now actually move a little bit into the realm of artificial intelligence and generative AI. But before we get there, it's good to always recap. What do we mean when we say multi-cloud, right? So I'm Alexander Romero, Senior Director of VMware Cross-Cloud Services. And what we see from our customers is that they are, right, we are in this 10 to 15-year trend where in order to get the business outcomes that customers are looking for from their infrastructure assets, they are going to end up having to use multiple clouds for the indefinite future, which means there's everything from on-prem private clouds all the way through the hyperscalers and then out through to the edge, right? As well as things in between, sovereign clouds, managed service providers, you name it. So today, customers are juggling all of this, and really where they find themselves is on this journey. And so we can go ahead and drop the next slide. They were in a cloud first mode where initially it was, okay, let's go to the cloud. There's a lot of benefits from the cloud. Absolutely. However, with that added complexity of a cloud environment, now they're sensing and they are in a lot of cloud chaos, which is too many clouds, too many different pieces of infrastructure, and it's actually slowing down the output. So on this show, right, we want to help customers get to cloud smart using VMware cross-cloud services. And we're going to tackle that as well as many other topics here today. So with that, let's chat a little bit about today's episode. So super hot topic, anything AI, anything generative AI, predictive AI is absolutely top of mind for folks. Now, this is, as it intersects with the multi-cloud, really the Wild West, meaning that there's a lot of innovation occurring. There's a lot of different infrastructures that are evolving. And so no doubt this is a point in time in which we'll bring in experts and talk about that landscape as well as how customers are using it. But it will absolutely change over the next several years. Now, when we think about AI, one of the first names that comes to mind, brand names, is NVIDIA. And so very lucky today to have an expert from NVIDIA to join us, who is Charlie Huang. Hi, Charlie. Welcome. Pleasure to have you.
Hi, Alex. Here. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
And very much want you to just introduce yourself to our audience and a little bit about your background and role at NVIDIA.
Yeah, my name's Charlie Huang. I'm a senior product marketing manager in the enterprise AI group. I've been working with VMware for the better of about 5 years now.
Fantastic. And, with Charlie and this being a live episode, and I got to do a pause here because my video screen is frozen. Am I frozen for you, Charlie, or is it just me?
You do look frozen.
Ooh, okay. That's a bit of a challenge. Well, I might have to re-log into this.
I can hear you fine, though. Your audio is coming through fine. Yep.
Okay. We're going to do a quick on-the-fly stop cam and start cam and see if that fixes it. No, I am still frozen. Okay. Well, this will be an interesting episode. We've never done it before where I had a frozen cam, but that's okay. All right. So, and actually that's a great point, which this is a live episode. And on a live episode, we've got folks on LinkedIn who are watching it. And as you're watching it, feel free to add comments. We've got a number of subject matter experts that are watching those comments and questions, and we'll bring those questions together at the end when we bring our subject matter experts together to address some of those questions. So that being the case, let's go ahead and jump to the next topic, right? Which is, Charlie, we've got a lot of a lot of buzz around in many different words, large language models, Llama, HuggingFace, all these different things. Two of the big concepts though, that we hear about is predictive AI and the intersection of predictive AI with generative AI. Would love for you to really kind of walk us through those differences. And I tell you what, I might drop off and see if I can reconnect while you're going through this slide, which really you're the expert on for the show.
Yeah, sure, Alex. And it looks like you're there. Your lips just aren't moving. But looking at this, AI's been around for over a decade, and generative AI is new, but really we have traditional or predictive AI, and it's really been focused on detecting patterns, making decisions, honing in on analytics, classifying data, and detecting fraud. But now we have generative AI, and generative AI, on the other hand, it produces new content, chat responses, designs, synthetic data, and even like deep fakes. So um, in previously, customers have been exploring AI and using traditional classification. Might have heard the NLP term, like natural language processing task, and there's more of a gradual migration towards large language models that's used for generative AI. And the well-known example for generative AI is ChatGPT, which I think we're all familiar with and have heard about. You can ask ChatGPT to do something original, like write my script for the VMware Multi-Cloud Expedition podcast. So our whole conversation today could have been written by ChatGPT, but don't worry, it's not.
All right. Well, the drop in Riyadh has made things worse now. Now I am a black screen. So
Yes, you're a black screen.
we need a little bit of AI, generative AI, to fix this in some in some way, shape, or form. All right, I might try another drop and re-add in a second here as we kind of go to continue on the topic. So thanks for that explanation of predictive AI and the generative AI side. And the catalyst, right, for this exponential interest in AI among enterprise customers. Walk us through that catalyst, because it wasn't like this, 2 years ago, and all of a sudden, boom!
Yeah.
Now it's all over about the capabilities.
Yeah, the generative AI era it's upon us, and our CEO and founder of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, he likes to call generative AI the iPhone moment of AI, right? And this was sparked by ChatGPT, that I just mentioned from earlier this year, and generative AI presents exciting opportunities for enterprises to overcome, new challenges and unlock new possibilities. And generative AI has so many different applications across all the industries, really. And you could just see from this slide, and I won't go through all examples, but just a few to call out. Finance. Generative AI has proven instrumental in areas like fraud detection and offering like personalized banking experience and providing investment insights, for example. And then healthcare is huge because we're seeing generative AI being used for molecule simulation, accelerating drug discovery. Like one of our joint customers, the Netherlands Cancer Institute, they've been using our technologies together, VMware and NVIDIA, to do image detection to find cancer more easily and quickly so that they can make patients better and safer. And then just one more example in retail, generative AI is enhancing personalized shopping experiences and then driving automatic price optimizations and doing a lot more. But you could see, like, across all these industries, one of the big things is AI virtual assistants. And really that's using generative AI to improve customer support experience and satisfaction. And so you could see generative AI making inroads into every single industry and just transforming traditional practices and bringing unprecedented unprecedented like operational efficiency and innovation into all these industries.
Yeah, well, no one can accuse us on this podcast, Charlie, of being somehow auto-generated. this is, it or it not being live. So, given the technical difficulties that we've had, which is kind of an interesting topic, so to speak.
So is this really Alex or AI? I mean, you
it's
look so
it's me.
perfect now. Okay,
Maybe
all right.
maybe AI is trying to take over. Maybe it doesn't like our topic and it says, we're going to take this guy out. We can replace him. That's possible. Thanks for being a good sport about it, Charlie, and for accommodating the show while I drop in and drop out.
Yeah,
Hopefully, it
no
doesn't
worries.
happen again. Okay, now the topic of obviously generative AI, fairly new AI, has actually been around for years, and the use of GPUs has also been around for years, but matured significantly. Although we hear all the buzz about this today, the last couple of years, this is not new. Nothing new not say nothing new, but NVIDIA and VMware have been working together on the virtualization of GPUs for what's really a 10-year history, and would love for you to kind of talk the audience through this history of kind of innovation and research that we've done.
Yeah, definitely. We've been partnering for over 10 years here, and you could see from this chart. Now, I personally have been working with VMware for at least half of this. And NVIDIA and VMware have been innovating accelerated computing in virtual environments from VDI, really, right? We started out with VDI, and then to evolving into AI. So 10 years ago, NVIDIA announced GPU virtualization on VMware. So this is back in 2013, and we focused on the high-end graphics user. And then, almost every year since then, over the last 10 years, we've been evolving the acceleration capabilities in the virtual environment, adding new and new features. So we went into, simulation, photorealism, and then we added manageability features like vMotion, DRS, and then RTX ray tracing, came in like 2019. And then in 2020 is really when we announced running AI in virtual environments accelerated by the NVIDIA GPUs. And we called this the VMware NVIDIA AI Ready Enterprise Platform. And today it exists. We have a lot of joint customers on this platform, and we continue to evolve it. And together, up until today, up until a month ago, we announced our joint generative AI offering, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later in the show. But we're bringing technology that we're bringing together to market that's going to allow our customers to embrace generative AI to quickly train and update models to be successful in solving problems.
Yeah, I think
It's exciting stuff.
it is super exciting, and for our audience who very much may be hearing from data scientists in their organization, they're gonna want that infrastructure compute capability, but GPU based. Then this is not something new that we virtualized, right? Although we did it a long time ago primarily for graphics needs, as opposed to the AI ML needs. The underlying capability of just the virtualization and being able to manage those has been matured over the past 10 years, which is a super important infrastructure capability as those line of business demands come in, right? And then you've got to have a way to allocate that infrastructure. Okay. Now, a couple more industry expert questions that I want to, pepper you with. Can you talk a little bit about lots of buzzwords, Hugging Face, OpenAI models, and how do these things come together? How do enterprises use those models in order to achieve outcomes? Like, tell us a little bit about what's going on. Maybe start with what is Hugging Face?
Yeah, so Hugging Face is it's a platform that offers a model hub or a model repository, and you could get foundational models like foundational AI models on platforms like Hugging Face, and this is a great place to kind of get started without creating your own model. So LLMs, large language models, are essentially taking lots of data that have been gathered over time, right? And there have been various companies that have created these LLMs for the world to consume, right? So there's Llama, like you mentioned, by Facebook. There's Nemo from NVIDIA that's available on Hugging Face, also on NVIDIA NGC, and those are available to everyone, right? I like to think about it, when I kind of think about foundational models and just the value it provides and the availability to everyone. I kind of think about water. Water is very valuable in itself, and it's available to everyone. But when you think about it, my water is the same as your water, Alex, right? And so, how do you make water special? And when you think about it, like all the beverages we consume, like coffee, energy drinks, soda, and we spend a lot of money on these things. Why? Because it's differentiated. It's not just water. It's special. They add in their secret ingredients, right? And when you think about AI models, it's the same thing. There's going to be a lot of enterprises that want to start somewhere. They don't want to start from completely from ground zero
They don't
train their own model, right?
they don't want to, nor should they need to reinvent
Right.
water, right? Like that.
Right, exactly.
That's
And so
just
what they want to do is they want to take their, these foundational models are available, in places like Hugging Face that we just talked about. And they have their own data, right? They have their own proprietary data. They want to customize these models to make it theirs, right? So I want to create the next, Coke, if you will,
Mhm.
of AI. And so they take their own data and they use a framework like NEMA framework from NVIDIA to add their customized data into these foundational LLMs and make it their own, right? And so they fine tune the model, and that's how they differentiate by putting in their proprietary model and making the model even smarter, right?
Mhm.
And so when it comes to AI, data is gold, right? Data is the gold. And keeping enterprises data secure and private, it's going to be very important for their competitive advantage, right? And not just for competition, but also for laws and regulation. So I just talked to a customer last week, in fact, and they're from the Europe region, and they were telling me how the laws in Europe are much different than the US. I think there's a lot of folks familiar with GDPR, for example, right? And so there's a lot of privacy concerns in regions like Europe where data has to be kept private. And so as they're fine tuning and customizing, foundational models with their own data, they want to keep that private and secure. So
Yeah,
this is
the
going to be very important going forward for enterprises.
yeah, by the way, I love that analogy. I think that's a great one. The water to the secret ingredient to the Coke, right? And so the water exists out there as these large language models, but those secret ingredients is that secret recipe that Coke has or Pepsi or you name it, and they don't want to put that just all of a sudden in the public domain because then that is gone, right? Or it's available for everybody else to use and have that same access to that informational benefit. So that, Charlie, is really a perfect segue to bring in our next guest, who is Shobhit Bhutani. Welcome, Shobhit, to the show.
Good morning, Alexander, Charlie, and the fabulous audience. Happy to
Y-
be here.
Yeah. Shall we take a quick minute to introduce yourself, talk about your role at VMware and kind of the intersection with the show today?
Sure. Um, so I work as the messaging and positioning lead lead for generative AI and AI ML for VMware. In my role, I lead the product launches, messaging, positioning, etc. for AI ML and generative AI. I've been at VMware about 2 years or so, and before this, I worked at Dell Pure Storage and Rackspace, and have been working very closely with NVIDIA for the last 2 years or so since I've joined VMware in my role.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Charlie did a great job kind of setting up everything from beginning with that predictive component to AI, moving into the generative, right? And then going towards the water analogy, right? Using these large language models, but you got to add those secret ingredients. So those secret ingredients is that private data, which can exist. I mean, realistically today, a tremendous amount of it exists on-prem, right? That's the world we have today. It's also going out to the cloud too, for sure. But we're going to focus more on the on-prem stuff. So how or where does VMware fit, or what do we think about when it comes to being able to give the benefit of those generative AI models with the secret sauce and not releasing, right, all that private data to one of these large language models? Walk us through kind of, how VMware fits into this.
Sure. So I'm going to break this up into a two-part answer, so to speak. If you pop the next slide, please. So the key over here is, as Charlie explained, we've been on this journey for AI/ML for almost 3-4 years or so now at this point. Um, you know, Over the course of last 1 year or so, particularly since ChatGPT joined and became a big, launched and became a big thing, we received consistent feedback from our customers that they're super excited about generative AI. The productivity enhancements that they see out of this are tremendous. However, there is several concerns that they have about generative AI. Privacy is the very first one. If you start thinking about ChatGPT or any other, there's a bunch at this point, open, generative AI models. You pop in any of your information, data, or whatever you've got, it's gone. The way AI/ML works, it's going to suck in all the data and then go work on, basically building, testing, and then kind of improving the model answers for the next time around. That's the way AI/ML works. Right?
Shobhit, if I can interrupt for 1 second, because you and I, when we were talking in preparation for this, there was a lot of kind of enterprise freak out moments that I've heard from customers
Yeah.
where employees, right? They went to the generative AI, the Chat GPT, and they started using it for business purposes, which when it gets into, and I think the example you had mentioned was code, right? They were taking proprietary code and putting it in there. And so that's one thing, but you could extrapolate that to marketing messages, to sales forecasts, to you name it. And once it goes in there, then it's anybody's game, right? It's no longer just the private enterprise data.
Absolutely, and I think you bring up a really good point, right? That was code, right? It was intellectual property of that company. If anybody Googles it, they can find it really easily. It's a pretty well known example at this point. But saying that, you're spot on, Alexander. Like, you could do that with marketing messages while you're building content, for example, for a launch. People could go in, populate that into an open model, and now your IP and your very futuristic launch, for example, that information is going to get sucked in, and somebody else asks that question or similar question again, the answer can come in, right? So thus, enterprises have told us consistently they're very concerned about these IP issues, the loss of data, right? Particularly as well, like, you could put in information related to customers into this, and now we get into some serious issues, right, from an enterprise standpoint. And then there's access as well. So like Charlie was explaining, when you customize these models, you have to give it all kinds of your data to be able to build a corporate model that you can now utilize. But now, if you start thinking about it, why should, for example, a supply chain employee, for example, they shouldn't have any information related to bookings, forecast for the end of the quarter, right? They need to have certain specific things that they need to be able to access. And that's where access is a big part of the privacy issues as well. So that's why
This is like the need to know type of thing, right? So
exactly.
even internally, that large
Yeah.
language model added with the secret sauce of data, depending on role, right? So this is really role-based access to generative AI capabilities.
Yes.
And let me ask you this question. I feel like I saw a breach of this a little bit on, it was either Google or Bard or ChatGPT, where engineers were trying to reverse engineer the actual ChatGPT or again, Bard. It was one of those, and it was generating like internal type of like, oh, well, here's why I don't work. And so I remember an article about that, but a similar idea, right? You don't want to give that kind of access to the model to feed you information that really you shouldn't have access to.
Absolutely. Or, to build on what you just said, right? Somebody, for example, should not be able to ask a generative model and say, give me a list of all your suppliers, right?
Mhm.
Now, all of a sudden, that secret sauce right there, right? Again, it's role-based access to your point. If somebody is sitting inside finance or the supply chain industry or the supply chain part of the function, they have the right need to be able to access information like that, right? But if you're sitting, for example, in some marketing, for example, it's not really marketing's role to go in and get a list of supply chain vendors. And if you get that information, that can be easily used to reverse engineer what you're doing or pull up a competitive product line, right? So those are the real issues that access issues come in. Now, building on that, customers are also very concerned about getting locked into with suppliers or providers of generative AI model that they may or may not choose to have continue functioning forever. So they want to have choice of their generative AI journey, right? So to speak, while they're building the generative AI models. And I go back to like a couple of roles that I had in a pretty good in a very big CSP. The key messages we provided over there was choice of your multi-cloud journey, right? It's basically you choose which place you're going to go to a multi-cloud, which particular cloud you're going to choose, and which workloads you're going to use. Very similarly, customers are telling us that they want to have their journey that they decide in partnership with us as being consultants or specialized service providers, but they want to choose that path. Why? Because if you get locked into contracts, etc., that you have you can't get out of, for example, your cost can go up dramatically, right? Because now you're in proprietary kind of environment, so to speak.
And
Performance.
here
Yeah.
I was gonna say if we look at this is traditional vendor lock-in problem, right?
Yes.
And at this early stage of the game, right, in terms of how the language models are developing, their ability to then provide answers, I mean, it's a genuine concern because one model that if someone gets locked into it, another one could surface, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now that just leapfrogs it the way that the progression is happening. And so there's definitely customers, rightfully so, worried about that choice. How do they have that choice going into the future?
And then aside from the large language model itself, the suppliers themselves, right, the vendors themselves that they're doing business with, you could always get an enhancement that you want to move or do things slightly differently, right? And so that's why there's both of those things become extremely critical, like you said, Alexander. And now kind of moving on to performance, right? Performance, infrastructure performance is always an issue. AI models, the way they work is whenever you want to do, you're building these models, training of AI models usually has a huge spike, right? That happens. And customers have told us that they're very concerned about performance. And this goes actually even before that to AI ML in general, right? Performance is always an issue. Generative AI models just have a ton of data, right? Huge large language models. And that's why performance is a big issue here.
Here, the other thing I think about was performance or management of, resources is, and Charlie can correct me if I'm wrong here, but these things aren't cheap, right? And so you want to make sure that whichever, once the acquisition of that asset is made for that infrastructure compute GPU capability, that it's allocated as efficiently as possible. So it's very easy, and customers are kind of worried about this part of it. Where do they overbuy on it, right? Or is it kind of like today, actually we see a lot of this in the cloud, where there's just tons of cloud consumption or kind of idle resources that is, the meter is running, right? And big bills are coming to those customers, but the resources aren't being used very efficiently. So performance, those things kind of tie together.
And from a performance standpoint, we work very closely with the VMware performance team, and there's a lot of papers out there, and there's more coming that talk about how in a virtualized environment, you're not giving up any performance. You got all the benefits of manageability, but you're not giving up performance. We see near bare metal performance in that virtualized space, and we validate and certify past, current, and future generations of GPU accelerators. So, yeah, definitely.
And I think great plug there, Charlie, is there's a lot of analysis that we've done together as teams together. We're bare metal, or in some cases even better than bare metal, right? So there's the virtualization tax, so to speak, no longer exists in this circumstance, right?
Exactly.
And finally, compliance. Sorry, go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, go ahead, Shobhit.
And then finally, compliance, right? Is when you give a generative AI model all your data, then as you can imagine, a whole bunch of issues pop in, or from a compliance standpoint, that need to be addressed, right? So, overall, if you look at this, right, generative AI model is, doing generative AI is not easy. It's a significant challenge for customers. They're excited about it, but they want help, right?
Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, this is just a great framework. So if we kind of think of it from our audience, right, standpoint is, we've got lots of infrastructure admins that are out there. And when they are asked, right, well, hey, we need some kind of capacity to do these AI workloads. Here's a framework for considerations, right? That privacy, that choice, that cost, that performance, that compliance. These are big buckets that they could kind of scribble out when they're asked for, what are our considerations? How do we have to think about providing that infrastructure? So that's probably a good segue to the next section, which is, all right, well, how can VMware help?
Great point. So from a VMware standpoint, we've launched about a month back, like Charlie indicated, VMware Private AI. This is basically an architectural approach, very heavily engineered, tested jointly between NVIDIA and VMware, to doing AI. This approach addresses all the concerns that we just talked about, right? And basically helps customers to get the humongous business gains and productivity that they need. They're looking for from generative AI. However, it balances out and really gives customers control over their privacy, compliance, and all those needs that we just talked about a lot, right? So we're not really at this point, when you go in with VMware Private AI solution, you are basically guaranteed to kind of get a private, secure model, right, that you can turn around and now very easily spin up with your generative AI model on top of it, and then get those humongous benefits that we're talking about. And as we were talking, right, generative AI models and doing generative AI in general, it's not easy at all. That's why we're on this mission to democratize generative AI for all enterprises, right? Not just big ones, but all small ones as well, right? And we feel that because when customers start utilizing generative AI, they're going to be able to really focus on what their core business needs are and really improve productivity dramatically, right? From code generation to reducing a lot of the redundant tasks that customers do today, just because that's just the way they are. They have their setups done right now. So it will really ignite business innovation for customers. We really believe that, and that's our mission today.
Yeah, it's great. Well said. Very, very well said. And the thing that comes to mind here with this capability, because I always think about this is a major technology capability for everyone. At the beginning, Charlie went through the different industries that are looking at this. And where it comes into play is when that technical capability, right, is converted into competitive differentiator, right? And so for customers, whether it be, enterprise, or it's the government or private, or some other kind of, organization, they're going to see, and for those that can see the opportunity to innovate and use this capability, then they're going to need, that's going to produce ideally some competitive differentiator. So at the same time, this is not simple stuff at all, right? Virtualizing GPUs is not easy to do, as well as role-based access for data. So it's not the type of thing that customers, the same way they don't want to go reinvent water, right? They don't want to go build GPUs, right? Silicon, and they don't want to go build their own software to do this. They just want the technical capability. They just want to have that, hey, I want to take my sales data, I want to apply it, fine tune a model, large language model, to give generative insights on what we're doing, as an example. Of course, you could use code, you could use anything. So last month, right, we had our big conference, VMware Explore Las Vegas. The conference goes on. I mean, it's a plug for the conference in Barcelona. It's coming up in just a few weeks. I think this week is Singapore. So the conference travels all around the world, and we continue to share our innovations as we've discussed on this show. But at Las Vegas, we made a huge announcement with NVIDIA, with our CEOs, Raghu from VMware, as well as Jensen from NVIDIA. So would love, Charlie, Shobhit, walk the audience through in case they missed it. What was the big announcement? And you can explain kind of what this picture is.
Absolutely. So we announced this integrated generative AI platform. This is called VMware Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA. This is going to be available early next year. The vision we have of this, and there's heavy amounts of engineering work that NVIDIA and VMware are doing at this point jointly to make this happen, is to give the abilities for customers to be able to order one SKU, right, on the OEM of their choice, right, and get VMware Cloud Foundation, which is the base offering for VMware Private AI, which forms the infrastructural layer, and a whole bunch of capabilities like deep learning VMs, etc., that customers will be able to get, combined with NVIDIA AI Enterprise on one SKU, right? So this is very exciting for customers, right? So instead of trying to do this piecemeal, build one by one, you order one SKU. VMware and VMware partners only will be selling this SKU, and they will be able to architect their generative AI solution based on the OEM of their choice. Anything you want to add there, Charlie, about the NVIDIA AI Enterprise piece?
No, that again, I think this is going to just make it easy for the enterprise customers to really get the tools and everything that they need to do generative AI, right? And so we've taken the pieces from NVIDIA AI Enterprise, which is our enterprise grade AI software, and package things like the NeMo framework. So we talked about customization and fine tuning of the LLMs. Well, you have the models. You see above. We talked about HuggingFace, NVIDIA NGC, where you could get NVIDIA NeMo LLM, Llama 2, etc. And the NeMo framework essentially is that framework piece to customize and fine tune the enterprise's proprietary data with those models, right? And there's other things like TensorRT LLM libraries that allow for using the GPUs to accelerate the training and inferencing of these models, right? And so and you could see we have reference architecture like OEM. These are our initial OEMs that we're working with, to run this all on. With we also announced the L40S GPU that's available, and that's going to be great for doing Gen AI on. And so it's essentially the easy button for enterprises to get going on Gen AI.
One of the superpowers, for VMware has certainly been the abstraction of complexity. And I think, this is a great example, right? Where together, right, in this case, NVIDIA doing it also, VMware and NVIDIA is abstracting the complexity of having AI-ready infrastructure down to even the purchasing, So again, not here yet, coming in early 2024, but to take that complexity out of, taking the you don't have to go reinvent water, right? Or chips, right? Or virtualization. Just the customer says, I have an idea, right? I think we can use generative AI together with our proprietary data in order to achieve a competitive differentiator. and then they come to VMware and NVIDIA, and boom, we've got this, this offering ready for them.
Fantastic. Yeah, and
Mhm.
then if we kind of, to your point, Alexander, right? If we abstract ourselves out of this, make it very simple, right? Is we're providing the infrastructure layer for customers for with VMware Cloud Foundation. On top of it, as the infrastructure gets architected, customers can take any open model like Charlie had explained, combine it using build it out using the AI workbench, deploy it and fine tune it using NVIDIA frameworks, and there you go. As simple as that. Like
Mhm.
pressing the easy button, like Charlie had said, is the best way to describe the solution.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, this is actually probably a pretty good segue to talk about an example of how a customer might use this. And then from there, we'll jump into the demo. So maybe set it up a little bit for us, Shobhit. There's a lot of stuff that was on that slide. What is this what's a good customer example or use case for this?
Yeah, I think from a customer example standpoint, like we're actually at this point flooded with a lot of customer requests to help them kind of deploy really quickly. And one example that comes to mind right away is a large format retailer that we're in conversations with today, who's asked us to very quickly come in and start building a generative AI model for them, right? So that the exact example that we're doing there is exactly that, where we're doing helping them. We're in conversations at this point for architecting a solution, and then we're going to leverage NEMO frameworks, right, and kind of help build and spin up their generative AI model, so they can start doing some very interesting things with retail, right? Where I see a lot of opportunity, right? When you walk into retail, for example, the connection between .com versus the store, there's a lot of gaps today, right? And then there's some very interesting things that customers are some retailers are thinking about is if you walk into a store, right, and then you're able to find a signal back, for example, back to a store employee who's saying, hey, this customer has been inside this aisle for a while. It sends an out of the Gen AI there's cameras above which capture that customer's being in there for a long time, observes which particular aisle and what products they've been looking at, sends a signal back to a employee saying this customer needs some help, right? So now here comes assisted help. So very interesting kind of space this is. So we're really excited about this.
Yeah, that example is like a little bit scary in some ways, right? That much data going on behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Then on the other side, there's numerous, I'd say big stores I've been in where I can't seem to find help. So I would, as I kind of, look all over for something, trying to find what I'm looking for.
absolutely. As a consumer, right? To me, it's very interesting example. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. There's some privacy issues, etc. for sure, and that's why our solution becomes very interesting as well to customers all of a sudden, right? Uh, Privacy issues. But then if you work through and deploy the right solution where you have the right controls, right, where you're not basically keeping data that you should not be keeping, right? Purging data is also an important part of it. Then you have some huge productivity gains you can get out of that.
Mhm. All right. Well, we're going to see a little bit of this in action in a prototype, which is going to look at, okay, here's what generative AI looks like with just the water, right? Just that large language model. And then they're going to add in the secret sauce and then ask the same question. So you can actually see what the difference is, kind of the A, B, so to speak. So let's go ahead and roll that demo.
VMware and NVIDIA are partnering to integrate full-stack generative AI into enterprise clouds. Generative AI will change the world. Enterprises need to customize LLMs with their own data. This requires maintaining the same security to software, hardware, storage, and the network environment. VMware Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA brings together VMware Cloud Foundation and NVIDIA's AI software, including AI Workbench and NEMO, making it easy to go from AI development to deployment. We start with the VMware Cloud Foundation cluster, which is an accelerated compute cluster with NVIDIA L40S GPUs and a BlueField-3 DPU. A data scientist is working locally, experimenting with an LLM. But as the AI project gets more complex, they need much more memory and compute power to customize the LLM to accurately generate responses for an enterprise knowledge-based, question-answering copilot. By using AI Workbench, they're able to quickly and easily migrate their project to the L40S VMware cluster. This toolkit automatically creates the project's environment, builds the container with all the dependencies, including Jupyter, so that it is optimized to run on the virtual cluster. The data scientist then uses this GPU-accelerated environment to p-tune the model on an open book question answering task to generate a full sentence response from a paragraph or document. Once that is complete, they simply check in the new model to a model store. It is then optimized with TensorRT for low latency and high throughput inference. The customized LLM is then deployed for production inference on the Tanzu TKG cluster. Here's the generative AI application using full sentence answers based upon the p-tune model. The response contains general optimization guidance but could not identify specific servers within the enterprise data center. LangChain's integration into NVIDIA Triton Inference Server provides answers from proprietary enterprise data sources. By chaining the model, the application is able to accurately identify servers within the enterprise data center that are optimized for generative AI. VMware and NVIDIA are partnering together to ensure enterprises have the flexibility and tools at their fingertips for customizing LLMs with enterprise knowledge base information without ever needing to leave the corporate network.
This is really going to, absolutely transform, all areas. And this was an example. You talked about one example in retail and customer service, but this is an example in IT infrastructure, right? Where yes, the large language model can generate general answers about, which servers, what a server is, and describe it. But then once that secret sauce is added in, what's called, fine tuning or customization of the model, then that's where it's really able to give, specific answers about the proprietary environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Now let's look at one other thing, which is when we think about, and you and I had talked about this example a little bit before, where there's the capability, this infrastructure capability for GPU use. Now, with our audience, there's a lot of admins again that are on, and they'll probably be interested to see, well, how would they allocate this, right? What does it actually look like from their console? So let's go ahead and maybe I'll set up this example a little bit. Imagine there's a data scientist. The data scientist is working on a model on their computer. Then they need to more higher capacity in order to then train that model. And then they open up a ticket to IT to say, hey, I need the capacity to run this model, right? And so then that's a little bit of a setup of what this would look like for a admin that's being asked by their customer, right? Their business units for more data. So let's go ahead and run the demo.
Yeah. In this example, if you see, there's the familiar vCenter interface that all admins recognize really well. The VM here, right, the one that we're showing, if you notice on the right-hand side where the cursor was, there's two virtual GPUs that are allocated to that VM. So very easily, basically, you can allocate, two virtual GPUs and be able to easily run your AI models based on that.
Yeah, so this is a little bit that same look and feel you love, right, about vCenter, and then being able to allocate that infrastructure in a virtual machine, but that infrastructure is actually GPU based. And here we were showing an example of two GPUs. Yeah, very powerful. Yep. All right, let's go ahead and welcome to the show as we're getting close to the end. It's Q&A time. So Leanne has been manning and watching the chat behind the scenes. And as is customary, a couple of good questions roll in for the subject matter experts. Leanne, what did you see out there?
Well, actually, some great interactions. Definitely a lot of interest in this topic. So definitely a good connectivity here. I guess one thing that's come up is obviously we've got a great partnership with NVIDIA, and we've had a long relationship with them for quite a while now. But do we what other ecosystem partners are we working with, and kind of what does the future look like?
Great question. NVIDIA is definitely our leading partner in this space, like our infrastructure, like we're just showing big time based on NVIDIA's software. But we also partner with a lot of the current new software vendors like HuggingFace, Ray, Kubeflow, etc. Folks that are actually able to give specialized AI functionalities and capabilities for customers' infrastructure. So a breadth of ecosystem partners is available here.
Perfect. Yeah, that's outstanding. And obviously our strongest partnership is with NVIDIA, and that's where we've made a lot of announcements there. So I've got a counterpart on also, Justin. We've been providing quite a few links. So please do look for more information out there as far as the private AI partnership and all the amazing things we're doing with NVIDIA.
And I'll add to the
please.
partnerships, Leanne.
Yeah.
We showed that slide also with our OEM partners, right? They're going to be a big player in the
Yes.
infrastructure piece, in which all this will run on, right? We showed our initial partners with Dell, HPE, Lenovo, Dell. So I want call out those partners as well as MLOps partners as well. So we have joint partnership with folks like Domino Data Lab, for example, just to name one of them. So just want to call that out.
Great point.
There's a tremendous behind the scenes, right? From the GPU level to those partners, those Lenovo's of the world, et cetera, HPE, to the software layer with VMware. So, for audience members that are watching, there's a lot that goes into providing the infrastructure as well as the manageability and performance and cost and privacy. So hopefully, as folks have tuned in, they've been getting pieces of that and can take away some good information. Back to you, Leanne.
Yeah, absolutely. And given a lot of this is fairly new, just specifically around the kind of private AI announcements and things that have come up in the last month, what will be coming early next year. Do you guys have any examples, customer examples that you would be able to call out to kind of show how we're already making progress today?
Yeah, so as Charlie had mentioned, like we have a long partnership from the AI/ML perspective, right? So 3 years back, roughly, is when we launched the VMware plus NVIDIA AI Ready platform. So that has actually been in place for a while now, right? And as part of that, we literally have dozens of customers. The biggest one that comes to mind is JP Morgan and Chase, right? They actually came to our show to Explore Vegas at GTC earlier on this year as well, and made presentations about what a phenomenal job VMware and NVIDIA had pulled together for their environment, right? So that's the biggest one that comes to mind. For generative AI, in general, being a pretty new application and new launch, there's dozens of customers at this point that we're in conversations with. We'll be in a position to share more about those customers when they actually launch and we have permission to talk about them.
Perfect. Yeah. No, it's a little bit early, but obviously want to make sure everyone understands that this has been in the works for a while. And then I guess actually that kind of tees up, Alexander, to one kind of final point is helping people get started. So I think you were going to kind of go back and talk about that. Where do people really get going with all this?
Yeah, before we get to that point, I want to go ahead and thank very much Charlie for your participation and guidance as an expert in the industry. I think no one can say AI without NVIDIA in the sentence. So having you here to validate, right, some of the pain points that you're seeing from customers, hugely valuable. So very much want to thank you for your time, as well as welcome you back anytime to
Yes.
the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex. Likewise, Leanne and Shobhit. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you so much, Charlie.
Well, bid farewell to Charlie. And then on that point, Leanne, which you just made was a great segue to, okay, that question, great customers are asking, how do I get started today? Because the NVIDIA stuff what we talked about was all fantastic. And we have components of that right today. But that specific SKU all-in-one solution is not till next year. So Shobhit, take it away. What about today? What can customers do?
Absolutely. So there's a question I get a lot of times whenever we share our strategy from a private AI standpoint is, what do I do right now? Great question. We have a validated, tested architecture today with VMware engineers that we've tested on. So all you got to do is come to us. We have that website link will be shared when the presentation gets shared out. And actually, there's a barcode there as well. You can just go to that reference architecture and start your journey today with our reference architecture. Like I said, it's engineered, tested, validated by VMware. So this is available right now for customers to get started.
Fantastic. Well, I know there'll be a lot of customers hitting that link, a lot of folks watching the show. So, and before we had looked through that and looked at the webpage, and it really is a very valuable, right, step-by-step guide on how to get this set up. So with that, Shobhit, thank you very much for being a subject matter expert here on the Multi-Cloud Expedition. Of course, welcome you back again at any time. For now, we will bid you farewell as we do the last little wrap part here.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Alexander, Leanne, and everybody. And special thanks to Justin Moray, who's actually in the chat and handling all the phenomenal questions and commenting on all of this. So thank you, Justin, as well.
Yeah, it's a great shout out to Justin. Thank you, Justin. He worked with us behind the scenes to make sure we had the right demonstrations as well as answer our questions specific. So thank you, Justin. Very much appreciate you behind the scenes.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Well, that concludes the show. Let me do a quick recap now. So we want to pop up the recap slide. Wow, we covered a lot of territory in this multi-cloud expedition. Beginning with looking at that predictive AI and what that piece was and the overlap with generative AI, right? And then that led into the history of NVIDIA and the VMware AI history. That's a long, really 10-year history of virtualizing GPUs. And the reason that history is so important is that the performance is incredibly important and the manageability of these resources, right? Because whenever there's new technical capabilities that become available to help differentiate customers and what their business outcomes will be, then that's great so long as it doesn't become overly complex. It's a very interesting balance between, great, I've got all these new technical capabilities that can do all these new things, but I also need the people that can administer those capabilities, that can ensure compliance of those capabilities, that can also allocate new infrastructure or take it back, be able to cost it. So the entire life cycle of a new technical capability is probably one that most folks don't think about too much, right? Because it's just more the bright, shiny object of what generative AI can do as an example. But all the stuff that produces that output, super important to take into account. And Shobhit did a great job of walking through some of those considerations, which are addressed in our VMware Private AI framework. And from there, talked about the announcement with VMware and NVIDIA with our Private AI Foundation coming later next year. All right. That was a fantastic episode. Lots to cover. And as we think about where do you go from here, Shobhit already covered it, but we've also got these links. All of these links, by the way, we will include in our show notes when it goes both on our blog as well as on YouTube. And next episode, a little bit of plug for the next episode, is going to be coming up on October 25th. And that's at noon Eastern time. And here we're going to have another subject matter expert, this time from Microsoft. And we're going to look at a question that we hear a lot from customers, which is, they're in a little bit of this cloud chaos. How do they decide where workloads should be placed? Should they be placed on-prem? Should they be placed in the cloud? Should they be hybrid in some way, shape, or form? So we're going to dig into that specific question. With that, I thank everybody that has tuned in and listened to the show. Again, it's immediately available as a replay on LinkedIn, and then we'll publish it with detailed show notes following that on YouTube also. So until the next episode, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. You can also reach out to any of our other speakers through LinkedIn. Thank you again, and have a great day.